for Swire Coca-Cola, but today I'm representing Keynote women speakers to create a bit of balance between myself and our expert panel when we deep dive on the customer-centric supply chain. So you are all leaders, and leadership is really important in terms of how we're shaping the future of supply chain. So I'll have some challenging questions for you prepared. And let me introduce you to our speakers quickly. So we have Benoit.
Nice to meet you. So I'm Benoit. I'm French, obviously. You can see from my accent. I'm based in Hong Kong, so I've been in Asia about 18 years. Never worked in France, so I'm a local, almost. And I'm working for Lacoste as a Asia supply chain and logistic director, based in Hong Kong. Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Great. And then we have Vykintas.
Thanks. You can call me Vix in that case to make it easier. And I came to the region about 13 years ago, basically at the time when I was building Zalora from the ground up to where it is today. So it's a fashion e-commerce platform for those you might not know. And we ship basically across the Southeast Asia to all the markets. And I'm a Chief Operating Officer for Zalora.
Great, and then we have Himanshu.
Hi everyone, a very good evening. It's really nice meeting you all. I am from India. I head supply chain planning, logistics and import-export for Diageo India. So Diageo, which is the brand is Johnny Walker, which many of you can remember. So that's the brand that we have. So I head the supply chain planning and logistics for that.
Wonderful. Okay. So I would like to start the conversation talking about the leadership imperative in changing customer expectations. And so great leaders do not only react to change, they actually anticipate the change and drive change. In your organizations, I think they are all an example of how you're staying up to date, and especially Zalora really being a relatively new company. So my first question goes to Vix. So e-commerce, right, a topic that you know very well, moves fast. So how does Zalora's leadership ensure the company stays ahead of the consumer expectations rather than just responding to it?
So, Jessica, to stay ahead of the expectations is quite challenging for sure. But we put customer at the forefront in that case. Yeah. So it's about listening to the customer in that sense. So it's not about sitting in the room and thinking what the customer wants. Is actually going out and talking to the customers, reviewing the surveys, reviewing what the customer is saying, and focusing on what matters really to the customer. Because you might be doing a lot of things, but they don't actually change anything. Yeah. But it's about doing the thing that really is impactful to the customer and brings joy and brings that wow element in that sense.
Great. I think that resonates very well with my experience, but let me hear from the rest of the panel if you want to jump in on that question.
Yeah, okay, but it depends what type of customers we are talking about, because I'm working for fashion brands, so obviously my customer is you guys, or the final customer. And I think, like, for me in supply chain, I try to make sure that customer goes first, no matter what. Because in big organization today, depending on the level of structure they have, sometimes they tend to forget that the customer is supposed to be first, because you have different P&L, people working in silo, cost savings, headcount savings, whatever. But at the end, what we are trying to achieve right now is making sure we have the goods on shelf on time, no matter what, even the cost or even the sustainability impact sometimes, to make sure that, okay, customer is served, and then if product don't sell, it's another problem, we can explain it, but customer always have to go first, and that's our also mindset that we have in Lacoste, to be able to see if our product performs or not.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a wonderful intro to the next question, I think, because I was asking about leading with clarity. So when we see the difference between management and leadership, right? The managers handle complexity, but the leaders should simplify and really set priorities. So how do you simplify customer segmentation or other elements around how to navigate the customer and customer focus to drive supply chain success? So maybe Himanshu, if you want to jump in on this one.
So I think the number one, it starts from really telling your team that what is most important today is the customer centricity. And just to emphasize that, how do we create supply chain as a business enabler, not just about supporting the commercial team or supplying the products. It's by saying that we are not working for supply chain, we are working for creating better customer experience, right? So that's how we kind of try to drive the mindset of customer first, right? And because once you have that mindset in place, the team automatically starts working not just for supplying product, but supplying products with by creating better experience for the customers. And today, being in supply chain, it's not like earlier days where supply chain used to be just a distance away from the customers. With the technology, with the presence of e-commerce platforms and all, supply chain people get to work directly with customers at many point of time. And therefore, when we are directly working with the customers, we need to kind of understand their expectations and create better customer experience, actually.
Yeah, I would be especially interested when we think of how Lacoste does it with fashion and also a little bit of like an upmarket brand. When we think about the retail strategy, so maybe you want to add on?
No, I think you were talking about leadership. I think what's important here, because we need to talk about Asia. So maybe I didn't mention before, but I'm responsible for the whole supply chain for Asia, which includes not only logistics, but also planning and demand planning, which is a complex part. And it's including Japan, Korea, China, and Southeast Asia. So I will say today we know that Asia is very diverse, very complex. Japanese is not a Korean is not a Chinese. So today we are having a very high complexity to navigate with a cultural, economical issue and other things. So I think what I try to do, at least on my side in supply chain, because like you say, we are in the middle of everything, is to drive that. And what we did, for example, recently in Lacoste is instead of having very centralized organization, which we had because I'm French, so in France, since historical time, everything is decided in Paris. So now what we are trying to do is to localize more the decisions. So what we did, for example, on my side with supply chain is to localize certain function in Japan, in Korea, in South Asia to be like closer to the market, closer to the demand, closer to the customer for everything related to demand planning, logistics and on, instead of just waiting in Hong Kong and trying to pilot from Hong Kong. Yeah.
Great. I want to switch gears a little bit and go to something very centralized often, which is data and technology. So it's the opposite if you think about it, right? So data, we want to make sure that we have it aggregated, easily available. It's a very powerful tool usually to create insights and action. And so the question that I would have for you is like, how do you use the data in the right way, right? Basically technology as a tool and how you use it as a competitive advantage in your markets. So what's the one key question that you want to bring to our audience as an inspiration where you say, this is the question that leaders should ask when using data to improve the supply chain customer focus or supply chain agility? If you have anything in mind, because there's a lot of data, but how to use it in the right way, I think is a bit of the magic. And yeah, opening, maybe Vix, if you want to jump in.
So it's nothing so complex, but I think going back to data, before you actually look at the data, the first thing you should be asking is, why does it matter, right? And then you start looking, and you start thinking what type of data I need, right? If you go backwards and you say, hey, I'm gonna get all the data that I have and then I'm gonna look what I get out of it, you're gonna get a very different result. So you should start with the why first and why it matters and what matters for the customer, and then look for the data that you need. If you start the other way around, you're gonna get some insights that will not lead to anything in that case. So it's, being very intentional about it from the start. And then, then you get the clarity and an answer what you're looking for in that sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Anyone wants to add on?
I just want to, add usually the model that we try to use because see today I think so data is the new oil, right? Everyone is using data and there are data everywhere in the organization. But important thing is that how do you use that data most effectively? So the way we start the model that we've created is one is first of all you need to know that what I know very similar to what Vic said. what you want to actually analyze. I mean, what result do you want? First thing. So you have to start from the end. You have to start. You need to first of all know that what insights you need from the data. Once you know that this is the insight that you need, then after that you decide that how do you want to see those matrices in place, or in which format do you want to see the data, which will help you to get those insights. Then to get those insights, what kind of inputs you need. Right? Once you know that, then you decide how do you convert those inputs into that desired output. Or if you don't have some of the inputs, what kind of assumption you want to make, so that you still arrive at the decision without delay. Because today I think speed also is very important. So following a very structured approach of converting the input data into the insights that you want to achieve is what we do usually.
Yeah, I think if I can jump in, what you can do with the data, what's important is like how you can create some kind of performance culture in a company. That's what, for example, we didn't have in the past. And it's exactly what these guys said. Sometimes we have a lot of data, but what do we do with it? What do we want to measure? Are we aligned on the definition of those KPIs or those SLA? And this is what some company like our size are struggling. So it's like making good use of the data, creating a performance culture, and obviously collaborating as well. Because today, if I take my scope between planning, logistics, shipping, it's creating a lot of complexity. We discussed this morning, I think it's the gentleman from DP World. Yeah. So it's like how you can use data as well to collaborate better with all the different departments. Yeah,
I think very relevant, that topic for the vendors in the room, right? To hear what you really expect in terms of data use and technology use. And I think you want to jump in.
Example which came to my mind, I thought I'll share that as well. So just to tell you that how data, how do you need to use it. So we used to do planning for a product, and that product was a very fast moving product with a perishable product. And normally what we used to do is when you used to do the planning or the inventory planning, we used to do weekly forecasting, that in a week how much we're going to sell. Right, so week on week we used to look at the trend, last 12 weeks or the 18 weeks, how much product we've been selling, and what is going to be my weekly requirement of that particular product. Now, one thing we started realizing that even after doing that planning, we were going stock out on few of the days in a week. Then we understood that probably, because what was happening within the week, the 80% of the sale actually was happening on the weekends. While when you just do the weekly forecasting and you do the average, it doesn't give you the right result for doing right production planning. Right? And therefore, it's very important that how do you use the data? I mean, you have to also figure out, maybe get into depth of things to understand what exactly you want to analyze.
It's funny because we also have a say in Lacoste is we need to de-average, stop averaging everything. So it's
good remark, good call out here, providing solutions to average. Great. Let's switch gears a little bit from data to sustainability. This is another topic that I would like to table here for a few minutes. Sustainability beyond compliance, really, and really the responsibility of leadership. Today here, I see that sustainability takes a big presence, and this event organizer is leading it with a great example. We have no printouts really, and a very sustainable approach overall. But let's bring it back to how we do it in these three companies. The balance between business growth, cost efficiency, and ethical responsibility, and how leaders really embed sustainability into their long-term decision making. So it's not about making easy decisions, but really making the right ones. And I would like to maybe start with Himanshu again. Diageo has pioneered sustainable packaging, right? There's a very nice case. If you could explain that a little bit more, and also what leadership decision made that possible, that would be really interesting to learn about.
So I think the first thing is sustainability is not a strategy anymore. It's the responsibility that we all have, right? So we all need to, first of all, internalize that, yes, it's important to remain sustainable, right, for the better future. So one of the things that Diageo did globally is we try to remove the outer carton from most of our products, right? And since you know that most of the products that we sell are in glass bottles, right? So the outer carton used to have two purposes. One is aesthetic. Obviously, it used to be, when you used to sell such a premium product, it's important to kind of give it a good aesthetic look. At the same time, also reducing the breakages are helping in terms of the transportation and the overall distribution of the product. So when we took this decision of removing the outer carton, it was not easy, right? I mean, there was a lot of worry that it's going to increase the breakages, how people are going to perceive it, how people are going to travel with the product, when they fly from one place to other place. But it was a very hard call which was taken that do we really need those outer cartons? To being more sustainable, to reduce the paper usage, can we eliminate those cartons? It took some time. Initial experience was really also quite kind of challenging for us because we did see increase in the breakages and all. But then I think people started coming out with the right solution. Also, consumers started understanding the rationale behind why it has been removed and the acceptability overall improved. So today, majority of the products, we could remove the outer cartons for being more sustainable. Similarly, many more examples that we have created. One is also in India, we're trying to use now the market bottles. So, handling doing the reverse logistics, getting the bottles back, washing it thoroughly, and then using it again. Right, that reduces the kind of glass usage by almost 15 to 20% overall, which is substantial, right? So there's so many different examples. While it has been initially challenging, but I think eventually it's good, and also eventually you also save costs. So a lot of time we feel that sustainability is going to increase the cost. It may not be always the case. You might end up actually saving money as well.
Great.
I mean, if I was to add to that, like I think the trade-off, right, in that case is we often think that sustainability is an additional cost, but sustainability is often very much aligned to actually helping you with the cost because it's about using less resources in that case or reusing it in that sense. Yes, there are sustainability choices that are very, very expensive, but let's not start there, right? Like you can take small steps first and just look at those that actually would help you at the same time, right? Like the ones that carton boxes you talked about. I mean, similar journey for Zalora where we moved to all the packaging to 100% recycled packaging. So meaning we're taking waste out of the environment and basically reusing that, right? And that's actually ends up being even more cost economical, right? And I think, we start from there in that sense.
Great.
Yeah.
Benoit,
So
jump in.
So sustainability does have a cost in many ways, but I mean in Lacoste, I'm not going to talk about transport because we talk about transport all day long, and obviously to be very honest, we are not focusing on the transport and reducing air freight at the moment because we have so much complexity today with planning processes that we need to do air freight. And if you can name me one fashion brand not doing air freight today, I would love to know. But what we are trying to do, however, because I come from a manufacturing background, we are trying to source sustainable material, and that's really key for us. What you need to know for Lacoste, for example, we are not having our own factories. We just have a couple of factories, historical one. So we are working with tier one factories in all Asia and Europe. And these guys, we are imposing them to order the fabrics, the trims, the labels, the hang tags from certain nominated vendors that we select, which we know are having sustainable practice. We're doing a lot of deals with directly with the farmers. So we are going up to tier 4, tier 5 in Australia or in the US to have sustainable cotton. I'm not going to mention we are not working in China for the cotton, for example. So we are trying to have sustainable practice. We are auditing every single factory and from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, which means we are auditing spinners, fabric suppliers, our own manufacturing suppliers to make sure that the safety within the factories is at our level, European level. The working hours as well, the wages are at the level, so we are doing a lot of efforts on that. Of course, sometimes we might accept some overtime, but due to peak season. But this is the big effort we do. So there is a trade-off, sometimes in productivity. For the fabric as well, it takes longer time to have fabric from US or Turkey than from China. But we are integrating that into our planning, trying to anticipate the best we can to be able to do that. And then, of course, we are communicating well to our customers because at the end, they need to know why we pay $100 a polo. It's because it's sustainable, it's long fiber cotton, is well sourced. Yeah, so that's also my marketing speech here.
Great.
Yeah.
Just so you know, you're buying a ethically produced product.
Durable product.
Durable product. Yeah, it's a classic. Okay, great. Great insights on the sustainability topic. It's still very, very present and important. Often that implies partnership, right? Or even partnership with your competition, to be really honest. Because if you really want to make a change, an entire industry would need to pick up that trend in order to make it happen. So let's talk a bit about partnerships and competition and leaders who build bridges. And I think especially partnerships is something that's relevant for this audience. Leaders usually look for win-win relationships, clearly, and with increased competition, the idea of like reshaping supply chain collaboration and really generating that win-win out of the collaboration is, I think, an important element. I would also like to understand a little bit the elements of trust, long-term thinking, shared innovation that come to play when you really truly talk about partnerships and, yeah, even beyond your let's say, integrated supply chain, but more even with competitors. So if we take that approach of leaders, a leader's job is to build bridges and not walls. The most impactful partnership you've developed to improve supply chain, is there anything that you could maybe share with us? It would be really interesting.
Yeah, so maybe if I start, and since we're talking about customer centricity, right? One of the big elements on e-commerce for customers is how do you deliver the packages in that case, right? So I think, and Zalora was here 13 years ago. We were just celebrating 13th birthday. And, you know, back in the days, most of the couriers did not know how to do the delivery. Most of the couriers were the guys who were doing your B2B delivery to the shopping mall in bulk. So it was about forging the partnership with logistics couriers, in that case, in how to help them understand what is an expected type of B2C delivery, right? And what type of tracking you need and what do you need to build. So like with a couple of 3PLs that we worked with, and I'm not going to name names, but basically we were driving the agenda in bringing B2C logistics delivery up to par where it should be and what the customer really expects. Because back in the days, the tracking was really terrible. Like instead, you know, on Zalora side, every other day we would receive a call in customer service and asking us, oh, hey, where's my parcel, right? Now you don't need to do that because the tracking is so clear and so easy to understand in that sense. So like this is I think, you know, e-commerce platforms have worked really closely with logistics partners to bring that standard up higher in that case. Yeah.
To me, I think on the partnership, the one you talked about is with competitors. So which is still not that easy, honestly. But yeah, there are areas where you have to work together to create a right, you know, business environment, maybe, you know, kind of advocacy to create ease of doing business and also making the overall, you know, infrastructural improvement and the policy improvement. So that's one area, especially in liquor, it does happen, right? We have to work together to see that how do we improve certain processes, especially which are linked to maybe the external world or the government, right? So we do that in terms of partnership. But to me, I think the other element of partnership, as Vix also said very, you know, clearly, is that today I think the kind of visibility which is there across a supply chain, right? Your consumer knows when the order is placed, when the order is accepted, when it is manufactured, when it is packed, when it is shipped out, and when it is reaching. Now, in the entire chain, everyone has to collaborate closely to finally deliver the product that you committed on time, and that also what is actually create the trust. Right? Because if you're committing, like in India today, you know, one thing is getting very, very famous about delivering groceries or the products within 10 minutes. You place the order, in 10 minutes, you're going to get the product at your home. And to get the products in 10 minutes, if the entire machinery does not work in tandem and in collaboration, you can't do it, right? And the trust is broken. And companies are able to do it now. Majority of the time, they are able to deliver the products within 10 minutes of the ordering. And that is the result of the collaboration which happens across the kind of partners you have.
Yeah, I will be a bit direct, but just to let you know, I think there's a lot of things changing right now on the, we'll say on the brand side or on the customer side. Because in the past, I remember when I started, and maybe these guys were from the same generation. I came from the very mass retail background where every cent was important. So the way I was trained, it was like, these guys are not your friend, squeeze them. And we had a lot of choice. And I think we talked this morning, before there was like 20 shipping lines, now there's 5. So we need to change. And then COVID happened, and COVID, what happened also, let's be very honest, I need your help, I need your help, I need your help. So I was like also looking for capacity with vendors, capacity with shipping lines or whatever. So we created this whole mess and just trying to also save money and save time. But now the mentality change, I think most of the brands, we are trying to go towards partnership, strategic partnership, build trust and long-term commitment. Let's say less transactional. So for example, we are doing that now with logistics. Because in the past, by doing that, we ended up having like 7, 8 warehouses in Asia, which don't make sense. Maybe we need 3, 4. So we are trying to redesign the whole supply chain as well, building a partnership and trying to create not only trust, but also gain from their expertise. Because to be honest, with the scope that I have, I cannot be expert in everything. My team as well. So we also need to leverage what these guys can bring on the table. And we saw all during today, they have a lot of expertise that we need also to leverage and change this mindset.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a very good point, the COVID effect, the acceleration of the basically pressure testing supply chains globally, forcing a new way of collaboration and rethinking basically the whole delivery pipeline with more B2 online business. Omnichannel really grew. And even now that COVID is over, luckily, we still see these trends lasting, right? They're here to stay, many of them. So if you have some insights on that, maybe we can tackle this in one quick round.
On the post-COVID part, no, I mean, that's what I said before. I mean, we really changed. I think there's a gentleman before said that actually nobody really changed their way of operating. It's more or less true, because what we figured out after the COVID, at that time was like, it's supply chain problem, we have delays, but then actually it was sometimes more deeper than that. Yeah. It was because we were not building partnership enough, we were not having a win-win situation with those guys. So I think, yes, since COVID we learned things, but we still have a long way to go before like trying to build the partnership, having a supply chain which is more like we say data-driven. And I think COVID taught us something, but not. We didn't apply all the lessons yet. Okay. From my perspective.
Yeah, I think post-COVID, at least with what I'm seeing, is that on the e-commerce where you talk about from the warehouse to deliver to the customer, I mean, it's pretty much the same. Like it went back to normal, but the change is happening before you get the supply. So because that's where it became very clear. It's very fragile. So if you're not able to get the stocks, if your production closes down, that's where there's a lot of change happening. Is how do I de-risk my manufacturing, my sourcing? So there's a lot more diversification happening. A lot of the brands are looking, okay, how do I make sure that I don't just produce in China substantially, right? So that's changing a lot. And I'm diversifying, right? And then how can I also do that faster in that sense? So that's where there's a lot of change, and I think there's a continuous change also in discussions at the management teams happening.
Yeah, and that creates complexity, if I can say, because today, if you have different sources, like you mentioned, and we did exactly the same, we duplicated the sources, we have the same product made in 3 different zones or area, then it's creating a lot of complexity with assortment, with MOQs, with all this stuff that we have to navigate. So of course we are agile, but at some point, you have some limit. But yeah, that was a good point.
Just to very quickly add, one thing permanently we learned is about to be agile. as we said multiple times, because that's how it is, right? You need to know that how, first of all, there's no supply chain problem which cannot be solved. And that's what we learned from COVID. You just need to have that mindset and agility to make those changes. Like we've seen during that time how groceries being delivered by the pizza companies, right? When it came to because they had delivery boys and there was someone who was supposed to be delivering the products. So similarly, how kind of, some of the fitness centers or the gym started kind of, going online. So everything was possible. People started finding good solutions. So that is one thing that we learned after COVID, that yes, I think we can solve any supply chain problem, but we just need to kind of have that mindset.
Great. From COVID into the future, let's learn and apply that. So if we look at the future of supply chain leadership, balancing cost, speed, sustainability, the resilience part that we just spoke about, nearshoring, AI, operations, global dynamics, and preparing for the next generation. So legacy isn't what we leave for people, but what we leave in people. So what's one of the leadership skill in the next generation of supply chain leaders that you think is essential and that should be developed and passed on?
Tough one in that case. I mean, if it's one thing, I mean, we talked just now about agility. I think much more important, not as a skill, but I think as a mindset of how you evolve and that you're continuously learning and growing. I think, in essence, every couple of years, if you think down the line and reflect back, is that what today seems exceptional, down the line, that's a norm. So, and that will continue changing, right, in that case. So it's like delivery times is one example, or personal service is one example. So you need to keep on evolving. So rather than one specific thing, I think it's a mindset and keeping, up to date, keeping agile, keeping evolving, and not getting stuck in a status quo and saying that's, this is good enough. I think that's the worst thing that you can do.
One thing, there's so many things actually, right? But if I have to just summarize, talk about one thing, I would say that it's you need to have end-to-end mindset. You just cannot remain in functional silo. You cannot say it's my planning job, I've done the planning, and now it's up to manufacturing side to produce, or it's a seller, commercial side to sell, right? If you really want to be futuristic, if you really want to kind of deliver value, you need to think end-to-end.
Yeah, good points. I'm not going to repeat what they said. I think resilience, agility, we keep hearing about these words for the past 4 years. I will say by experience, daring to dare putting problems on the table, which is something in some organization is not really possible. And culturally also, I know in Asia, it's hard to put problems on the table or say no. And if I take my own experience, I think I'm here and I'm also driving transformation because I was putting problems on the table in the past. I was not scared to do that, and I suggest to all the future generation to dare, to challenge, to have the critical mindset, and because we have to change, we have to evolve, and things cannot take it for granted.
Great. At this point, I would like to invite our audience to participate. If you have a question for our panel, please feel free to share this so that we can ask. Okay, we have one lady here in the front. Yes, thank you.
Hello, evening. Fix, I'm a happy customer of Zalora for 12 years. Just thought I should say that. I'm Shinta from Lux House. So my question is for all panelists, because this morning, while I was preparing to go to here, I woke up, I think we all woke up to the news of the trade war waged by the US and my company. So I'm Shinta from Lux House. We are luxury retailer and we import goods, the usual luxury brands from the US and also Europe. And while it currently still feels like thousands of miles away. I wonder. So my question is actually asking for advice from you guys. I wonder whether there have been conversations about this in your respective companies and teams, and any advice for us retailers here in the Southeast Asia region. Anything that we should be prepared for due to this trade war, and how do you foresee the like long-term or like short-term, medium-term impacts to the supply chain disruptions, if any? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Great to hear you're a loyal Zalora customer in that case. So, I mean, to put it in short, it seems like we're going into a protectionist world. And I think it sounds like that's the new trend. And, you know, there's tariffs on one side, then there's retaliation on the other side on the tariffs. And I think it's just something to anticipate in that case and track the news and on what's happening in that sense. I mean, I think some of you might have heard, I think Philippines is having new regulations about B2C like imports already. There's a new system of how that's going to happen. So it's about getting prepared and getting to know what's coming and having a fast business response to these changes in that sense. And that's honestly as best as you can do. And I think Indonesia is, again, another example where regulations every year keeps on changing and you need to adapt as well, right? So it's tough. Yeah, that's the...
It is.
Yeah, I think anticipation, but of course we don't have the crystal ball, so we can't know everything. But try to limit the damage. I mean, if you take the case of Trump, we had the same 5 years ago or 4 years ago when he was elected. So we already made some move. We have almost zero production in China because we know in the US it's pretty strict. We have zero cotton in China. We are doing DNA test on cotton to make sure we have zero Chinese cotton to pass the border. So these are stuff you can anticipate. And then we still, even Trump was not elected for the past 4 years, we still keep going on like that. But of course you cannot anticipate everything. But what we try to do, I think, what we did well is that we are really diversified. We diversified, the sourcing base. So, and today I can tell you it's very tough because we have a supplier in Peru. We are working with them forever. And now because of the trade war, then all the Chinese, I mean the retailers that were producing in China, they move all the production to Peru to avoid the tariffs. And then the guy told us, you know, bye-bye, we're not working with you anymore. So you can, even you make long-term partnerships, sometimes they can give up on the partnership. But anyway, like we say, try to be agile, try to not put the eggs in the same basket, and then cross finger that things will work.
Great. Thank you. At this point, we need to end our panel. So first of all, thank you to our 3 leaders on stage for sharing their perspective on the customer-centric supply chain. Key highlights, the why, purpose-driven, growth mindset, being agile, and really thinking end-to-end and really projecting that whatever business model situation also into a sustainable future. And also thank you to our audience for listening and hopefully learning some new points or just like some inspiration. And we look forward to the next chapter of this event.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.